By the time we reach the end of this video, one question that's being asked will be or should be answered. Is Daniel Penny self-sabotaging himself? I truly believe that he is, and I'm going to explain to you why I say that is going into this. So the last time we talked about Daniel Penny was back in May, when he made this very odd statement claiming that he was planning a trip to Africa before what the events that happened where he killed Jordan Neely after putting him in that chokehold. And I said to myself, really? And a lot of people said the same thing. I'm sure even some of his so-called supporters were saying the same thing, even if they weren't saying them out loud on social media. But now it's fast forward to June, and I'm recording this video on June 13th, 2023, where Daniel Penny has come out and made another statement. And I found it's very interesting that his team is allowing him to make all these statements ahead of any type of legal proceedings. Like, I thought you should have just been quiet. Like, why are you talking so much? But he made this recent statement where he says that he feels that he had a moral obligation to step in and do what he did. So what I ended up doing was looking up the definition of moral obligation, because I just wanted to see what it was or what it meant. And when I looked it up on Google, it says a moral obligation is the requirement to pursue what we believe is right and act accordingly. So he felt he had the right to go up to Jordan Neely and put him in this chokehold that lasted 15 minutes. Now, keep in mind, this man used to be in the Marines. He used to be in the military, so he's military trained. So his maneuvers are different from that of an average civilian. So he should know the pressure points of what leads to someone just passing out from a chokehold to someone dying from a chokehold. So you can't tell me that you didn't know all of that. And I hope that the jury takes all of that into consideration should this actually go to trial. That should definitely be something that they look really heavy into, the fact that this guy has a military background when he did this. Now, also keep in mind, in the state of New York, it is illegal for cops, the NYPD, to put someone in a chokehold. Remember what happened with Eric Garner and Daniel Pantaleo. That was an illegal chokehold that he had him in. As a matter of fact, if you look at the pictures of Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely and Daniel Pantaleo, and how ironically his name is Daniel too, and Eric Garner, they look eerily similar. They're just in two different locations, but they also happen to be in New York. The optics are very, very similar. That was an illegal chokehold. They deemed it illegal for a while. So if a cop cannot do an illegal chokehold, then what makes him think that he could? And he's military trained. Like, you really have to take all of that into consideration. And when you think about when he says he felt he had the moral obligation to do that, now you really have to take into consideration of what he's saying. Remember what they say, whatever you say will it be held against you in a court of law? That's why I keep looking at his team like, you do realize that everything that he's saying right now can be used against him. Like, you're literally setting your client up to be handed over. Granted, if he's found guilty, I wouldn't be upset. They're saying he's only looking at 15 years anyway with that manslaughter charge. And then you have his supporters, so-called, on there saying he shouldn't be found guilty and everything like that. And we know why they're saying that. I mean, I feel like I don't even have to explain it. I would be preaching to the choir if I did. The optics all play itself out just the way as I know it would. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and read the article and see if we can get some additional context behind this. The ex-Marine accused of manslaughter in the choking death of Jordan Neely has spoken of his moral obligation to intervene when the homeless man began acting erratically and threatened the lives of his fellow commuters. Daniel Penny, aged 24, made his remarks in a new interview with Fox News, in which he discussed hearing civil rights activist Eli Wiesel speak while in high school. One of the overall messages that he talked about was that good people did nothing. It's a lesson that I carry with me to this day. Penny told the network, this is the second interview that Penny has given. Neely, who had been struggling with mental illness and homelessness in recent years, died after being put in a chokehold by Penny, who restrained him with the help of other riders. The May 1st incident was captured on video. Daniel Penny was charged with manslaughter by the Manhattan District Attorney less than 2 weeks later. His lawyers maintained that the Long Island native acted in self-defense after being threatened by Neely. If convicted, Penny could face up to 15 years in prison. Notice it says up to. I always tell you to look at the verbiage. That doesn't mean he gonna get 15. It just means that he can't get more than 15, but they can give him way less if they wanted to. In his newest interview, and first, before I go any further, I find it interesting that they keep saying that Jordan Neely did all of these things, but we have yet to really see any footage of him doing that. We've seen pictures of the aftermath, or the during and the aftermath, as far as what Daniel Penny did, but we don't see anything saying that Jordan Neely was doing all of these things. But you know, like I said, they will over exaggerate anything. In his newest interview, Penny said that had Neely continued, he would have killed somebody. Since the incident, Penny said he is too traumatized to ride on the subway. No, it's because people know who you are and they're probably going to be out for blood. That's what that is. And it has nothing to do with being traumatized. Let's be real and honest with ourselves here. The ex-Marine went on to tell Fox News that he was inspired to join the Marines after seeing an advert on TV. They were going out and helping the world, and I wanted to be a part of that. He described his time in the service as awesome and opening his mind to new perspectives, seeing part of the world that many don't get to see thanks to his tours in Spain, Greece, Jordan, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Japan. Now notice what they're doing here, and they do this all the time. Whenever someone does something like this, they start to go into their past a little bit and pull something up to make them appear more positive and more light outwardly, or outwardly light to the masses who are reading these type of stories, especially off of the cusp of something very dark and negative that they just did. They do it all the time. Now, when they dig into the past of a black person, like say Jordan Neely, then they say all of these rather, you know, the usual stuff that they always usually say. Penny also spoke growing up around patriotism, as many of his neighbors were first responders on 9/11. When his service was up, he went backpacking throughout Mexico and Central America. Once back in the US, he moved to New York City to live with his sister, teaching swimming and bussing tables to make ends meet after he enrolled into the architecture program. Speaking about the fateful day he boarded an F train to go to the gym, Penny said, between stops, you're trapped on the train and there's nowhere to go. You can try to move away, but you can only do so much on a packed car. I was scared. I looked around and I saw older women and children, and they were terrified. Like I said, he's trying to build up his story right here. He better hope his story connects. That's when Penny stepped in, holding Neely in a chokehold until the train arrived at the Broadway Lafayette station, where police found him laying motionless. His lawyer, Stephen Razor, agreed with his client's versions of events, telling Fox Daniel could have gone to the corner of the train and waited for Neely to come to him, but it might have been too late for the little girl that was sitting in the middle of the train that Neely was screaming at. This week, it was reported that a New York grand jury was hearing evidence in the case. It is not known if Penny will testify. 9 times out of 10, they probably won't have him do it. Penny also thanked those who contributed to his legal fund through Give, Send, Go. At the time of writing, the campaign has raised over $2.8 million. This guy literally became a multi-millionaire overnight. And you could thank Ron the Snowflake for being a huge catalyst as to why that is. I was working 2 jobs as a student. My family doesn't come from money, so I'm incredibly thankful for this fund and all the people who have supported me. Funds are being raised to pay Mr. Penny's legal fees and cure from any criminal charges filed and any future civil lawsuits that may arise, as well as expenses related to his defense. Rocker Kid Rock wrote on the page, Mr. Penny is a hero. Alvin Bragg is a POS. Kid Rock. Now keep in mind, when I was going through that in the live stream, Kid Rock's name did come up. Penny's actions were also celebrated by 2024 presidential hopeful Governor Ron DeSantis, which I mentioned. And again, the snowflake is the reason why that Give Send Go went over $1 million in a couple of days. Because before he gave his little endorsement, it was nowhere near that. I don't even think it cracked 100K. Because I don't think many people knew about it because it wasn't on GoFundMe. Last week, Jordan Neely's aunt Carolyn announced her intention to file a wrongful death suit against Penny in a letter that was sent from her attorneys, the Manhattan-based Mills and Edwards, to Penny's lawyer. Please be advised that this office has been retained to pursue a claim for personal injuries and wrongful death. Your action resulted in the death of Jordan Neely, the letter reads in parts, report the New York Post. According to the Post reports, Neely's aunt is also seeking Penny's insurance information. Penny said that he often thinks of Neely's family. I'm sure. Members of which have said that he should be charged with murder. They've been in my prayers. I feel for their loss. Like Jordan, they're also victims of a failed system. See that, man, listen, if I was, that would, you know what? Let me stop. That was such a backhanded statement. Like, really? He said they've been in my prayers and I feel for their loss. You're the one that killed him. Like, literally, he took his last breaths in your chokehold. And you feel for their loss? When I say that is some cold shit and heartless, in my honest opinion. He says, responded to those who have called him a racist, Penny pointed out that many of those on board the train that day were minorities. That sounds okay. That just sounds like another self-incriminating statement. It definitely hurts a lot. It has obviously taken a toll. But you know what I said? That's in the article, by the way. I've said when you let them talk long enough, they will really tell on themselves. And this guy's been talking quite a bit and saying a bunch. Well, he's been saying a bunch of nothing and something in the regards of, I do believe he might be self-sabotaging himself. Like his lawyers, his attorneys, they're constantly allowing him just to get out there and to really say anything ahead of a possible trial. And again, it states anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So everything he set up to this point, the team for Jordan Neely is going to, if they're smart and ahead, are going to use that against them. How much it will work in their favor, that remains to be seen. But this guy is a POS, like how Kid Rock said Alvin Bragg is a POS. Kid Rock, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Daniel Penny is definitely a POS through and through. Now, like I told you, there's a reason why I like to do videos once a day now, because if there's ever an opportunity for a update to come, I can always add it in before initially adding in the video itself. Now, of course, that first part was recorded about 2 weeks ago about self-sabotaging himself. Now, I'm not going to talk about in this part that I'm adding in on today, June 29, 2023, which of course it'll be a couple days later by the time you see this video in its entirety, about his indictment. Because if y'all follow my page, a couple weeks ago I talked about his indictment in my live stream on one of my Friday live streams about 2 weeks ago, but I think that might be on my Patreon. So if you are a patron over there, you will see the playback. If you caught the live play at the time in real time, then you actually was able to see what I was talking about as it pertained to his indictment. But this is a more recent, where it says Daniel Penny pleads not guilty in the subway chokehold case. I'm not surprised in the least bit that he is pleading not guilty, I'm sure that's the option that he felt he had to go with, because it's like he's not going to try to take a plea deal, although his attorneys probably, I don't know, this might backfire for him. I'm not entirely sure. Again, this is going to be one of those stories that we're going to continuously follow. But again, remember what I said in the first part of this video of asking the question, is Daniel Penny self-sabotaging himself with the stuff in the statements that he has said over the last couple of months? And if that is the case, I don't know if the not guilty plea is going to work in his favor. But again, stranger things have happened. We live in a world, in a society, in an establishment. We're not shocked and not surprised when it comes to situations such as these. Is not new to us. So we will see going forward what's going to happen as it pertains to him pleading not guilty. Y'all let me know though. Do you think this is going to work for him or against him?